The question is, do you agree that Scotland should be an independent country?
For me, the principle that we work best when we work together.
Well, they didn't.
Very serious. The referendum. It seems to me that they're not dealing with the issues.
Hello and welcome to Scottish Independence podcast number 32. This time I spoke with Lynda Williamson, who is a member of Newsnet Scotland, and we spoke about the history of Newsnet Scotland and how it's developed over the years. Also, we got a bit to speaking about Lynda and what's her reasons for supporting independence. So, we'll just go straight to the conversation and I'll have a little word with you at the end. Hello Lynda, how's it going?
I'm fine, Michael. How are you?
Not too bad. A bit busy with various four-legged things running around, but apart from that, fine. I just wanted to have a little bit of a different kind of conversation today about, some of the popular websites that people read. This could be the first of a few. So, obviously, you're a member of Newsnet Scotland. Would you like to tell us how it got started and what kind of reaction you generally get?
How it got started? It got started, way back, 2009, I would say, around about then. A crowd of us met on Blether with Brian, the BBC blog, when you used to be able to comment there, in the olden days when Brian let you comment there. And we found the comments kind of format a bit limiting, so one of the guys went off and did a newsletter, and Newsnet Scotland started out as a newsletter, which we just emailed out to people. People would send us their email if they wanted it, and we would email it out to them once a month. But we found we had a bit more to say than that, so it kind of started getting to once every week, and then before we knew it, it just grew arms and legs. And the software we were using, we could only email out 50 at a time, and we had upwards of 1,000 people wanting it, so we thought we have to do something different here. And that was when we decided to have the website. The website after that, we were going to update it weekly, but it just seemed to grow arms and legs because we all had lots of things to say.
So in that first meeting, what was the point that you wanted to bring out? What was the thing that you wanted to change about the media?
At the time, we didn't feel there was anybody in the media who were really reflecting our views or reflecting the voice of people who were pro-independence or who maybe kind of thought they might be pro but wanted to expand it a wee bit more. There didn't seem to be a voice for us at all. I think all of the media at that point were quite openly pro-union.
Yeah.
So just never found a home for our voice, so we thought, what the hell, we'll make one ourselves.
And now it's incredibly popular. What are your numbers like for the site?
We're getting about 120,000 unique visits per month, and that's a trend, an upward trend that's been growing quite steadily.
How many people work for you? Is it a team? Have you got an office, or is it all volunteers? Or could you explain how it works?
Yeah. Oh no, we don't have an office or anything like that. We do it from our kitchen tables. There's a core team of 3 of us who have been around since the early days. But there are masses of people who come out and in and help us. Lots of people who will maybe just submit one article. There's professional journalists who've all been a great help in the past. And people like Kenneth Roy. Kenneth Roy in the beginning was an absolute wonderful help. Kenneth didn't really agree with us, but he agreed with what we were trying to do. So he was really helpful in the early days. Folk like Jerry Hassan, Leslie Riddoch, Amar Anwar, the Socialist Voice, Scottish Socialist Voice, are a great help to us. So we have lots of people that help out and send us in articles occasionally, because the 3 of us couldn't manage to keep it going, obviously just with 3 of us. We have now managed through the donations to take on part-time 2 freelance journalists who do the odd little bit for us that we can manage to pay them. Not very much, unfortunately. We would like to do more. But we've managed to take on 2 female freelance journalists, Lynn Malone and Angela Hegarty, and we're just looking at taking on another girl, and then there's me as well. So Newsnet Scotland actually is a majority female blog. I think we're unique in that, really.
It's not a thing you normally find, particularly in political circles, but if you could sort of distill your mission statement down a little, what is it that you hope to achieve with the blog?
What do we hope to achieve? Do you know, I don't think we've ever been quite that formal. As I say, we just looked and thought that the media were skewed, really not balanced. And we just wanted to try and bring a bit of balance to the discussion. We kind of thought we weren't going to bring balance by sitting on the fence. We had to be very firmly in the independence camp if we were going to balance up the voices that we were hearing against. And really, that's just the mission, is just to bring a bit of balance to it, to put things from the independence point of view, and also to point out that, you're not always getting a totally impartial view of things from the mainstream media.
And how have the mainstream media intersected with you? Do you get calls to go on Newsnight and these kind of things, or have they generally tried to ignore you? It might be a loaded question because I've seen a couple of things.
They've succeeded in ignoring us. I did have one appearance on Derek Bateman's radio programme, but that was about it. Yeah, they more or less ignore us.
Do you get the kind of referred to in passing a prominent Scottish independence website or some sort of thing?
We occasionally get that, which is a bit better because we actually used to trip the profanity filter on the BBC website. If you put in the words Newsnet Scotland altogether, then you trip their profanity filter. So things have moved on since then. You can't actually mention Newsnet Scotland now on the BBC, so that's progress.
Oh yeah, it's remarkable. The British Broadcasting Corporation, as ever, for the people. You can't comment and you can't leave the name of a website. Very interesting. But that means that someone must have consciously put that in as the profanity filter. If you don't mean leaving a link, that means someone somewhere in the BBC made a decision to have you blocked there. Oh, that's an interesting comment.
Yeah, and then when I complained and said to them, which word do you think is profane? Is it news, is it net, or is it Scotland? They changed it, and then we tripped the spam filter instead.
Ah, so that's hinting at not so much passive resistance as active resistance to Newsnet Scotland from the BBC. It's interesting.
It certainly was in the early days. I would say things have changed now, but in the early days, yes, they were very hostile.
With the independence referendum coming up, have you noticed a major spike in your readership?
No, we haven't had any spikes. As I say, numbers are growing steadily, but I wouldn't say they're spiking particularly. It's just a steady kind of growth.
And do you think that's indicative of what's going to happen towards the independence referendum? Is it going to be, everyone's talking about the last 6 weeks is going to be the most important thing. Do you think everyone's going to go crazy those last 6 weeks, or will interest steadily grow until that point, a sort of rising tide?
Personally, I think interest will steadily grow. As well as doing Newsnet, I go out and canvass with Yes Scotland occasionally. And what I've noticed is 6 months ago, people just didn't want to know. They shut the door in your face. Whereas now there's more of an interest. I wouldn't say there were more people going to vote no, but there's more people who want to talk to you. So I think it's going to be a slow, gradual kind of build rather than a bang at the last minute.
Just to come back to something you said earlier about, you said we're not going to counteract by sitting on the fence. You're openly pro-independence. What kind of fellow travellers do you have in that sense? What other websites do you feel are doing the same kind of jobs as you are?
That are openly pro?
Yeah.
Well, Wings is certainly openly pro, I would say, Wings Over Scotland. National Collective, I think, are quite openly pro. I think Bella Caledonia as well, I would say their editorial's pro. They may be not quite as strident as we are, but I would still say they're pro.
I think the Scottish Independence podcast is a bit of a giveaway on that front with the title as well. Yeah. But, yeah, okay. Can I just get to one little criticism of Newsnet that I've heard from a few people? Mm-hmm. Why is it so difficult to contribute an article out of the blue?
Contribute an article out of the blue?
Yeah, I've heard from a couple of people that they've tried to send you things and then there's a little back and forward on, we need this information, we need that information. Why isn't it? I don't know if you've changed the policy. This is talking about a year and a half ago. I was told this by two people who've tried to send you things, but it's been made quite difficult for the articles to arrive.
Right. A year and a half ago, actually, I wouldn't be in the position to know about it. But from what we're looking at now, sometimes it can be that you've already got the same thing from somebody else. Other times it just depends what's kind of happening in the news. People's articles can be good, but they're just not what we're looking for the site at that time.
If we can just come on to yourself then, the questions we ask everyone on the Scottish Independence podcast. What was it that attracted you personally to the idea of Scottish independence?
Basically, I have two, I was going to say young children. I keep saying they're young, Michael, and they're not anymore. The oldest one is taller than me. I have two kids, and I look around at the older kids that I see, and I see all this tremendous talent that we have in Scotland that all just disappears. You know, we talked about the pensions thing, and they kept saying we have this ageing population in Scotland for our pensions. I think, why have we got an ageing population? Because all of our young people all just leave. And this country isn't a poor country. We should be able to provide opportunities for our young people to want to stay here, to want to live their lives. You know, Scotland to be a place that kids want to build their lives. Because when my children, hopefully, get up and get married and have grandchildren, I want to be there and be part of their lives. I don't want to be the granny that comes at Christmas and holidays. I want them to stay here, and I mean, they might not, even if there are opportunities, they might go. And obviously I can't do anything about that, but I don't want the odds stacked against me. I don't want my kids to be forced to leave this country in order to find decent opportunities for life.
It's quite a common theme that people suggest that one of the reasons the political classes are so against independence is that they have that kind of career path that you suggested. You know, people start in Scotland in their local parties and then they go all the way up the chain to London, and they don't want to lose that privilege, that the privilege that they gain from being part of the Westminster scene. I don't know what you think, if that's one of the reasons the political class are so against it.
Yeah, part of the Westminster scene, I don't know. When you look at the population spread of the country, we're kind of, the country as in the UK, we're kind of getting to the stage where you have nearly half of your population living in the southeast and living in that corner. So if as a politician, you get votes there, then hey, you're home and dry. The skewing of our country, that's the other thing that I really object to, is the centralisation of everything round about London. Why? It doesn't do anything for quality of life. I don't understand why people particularly would want to live down there. Why can't we spread things out a bit? It's not a big country.
In an independent Scotland, would you like to see also not everything concentrated at Edinburgh, but it's an idea that's been put forward by the Greens and by various other people about strengthening local democracy and having more decisions locally? Is that one of the things you'd like to see?
Absolutely, that's what I want to see. And what I would be really sad about would be if we got independence and we got a mini Westminster where everything was centred on the central belt. And I think we have to be very, very careful to watch the SNP, because I see worrying trends of centralisation from them, and that's not something I would be happy with at all. I think the Green Party's ideas of devolving power down and having decisions taken locally by local people is definitely the way to be going.
And are there any other things you would really like to see happen in an independent Scotland as well?
I like a lot of the Green Party's policies. I like their land value tax. That to me sounds like a great policy. I would like to see that investigated a lot further and possibly implemented pretty soon. Andy Whiteman's stuff about land value tax, about land reform and the patterns of land ownership in Scotland, that's something that really needs to get sorted out as well. Yeah. There's so many exciting things that it would be great if you just start imagining what we could do. When you look at Leslie Riddick's Nordic Horizons, and you could cherry pick different things out of different countries. There's so many exciting things that we could do with the country if we had the powers.
And that's an interesting point. So many things we could do. And one of the things it could do is rejuvenate the traditional media. When lots of politicians and political activists believe that it's a real opportunity to do something special, why do you think the media that we have, the mainstream media, are so hostile and so against it? Why can't they see the opportunity? You know, for example, instead of London being the international centre and Edinburgh being kind of a fringe, no pun intended, why can't they see the advantages to them, to their business of Edinburgh being an international capital and centre and all the things that brings with it?
I think because most of our media are international and they already have their centres in London. I mean, you're not talking about Scottish owned businesses here. You're not talking about, I mean, the Herald is owned by NewsQuest, whose parent company is Gannett from